When I started working at the clinic in 1972 on the Auburn Hills campus of Oakland Community College, my background experience was 3 years of psychiatric training in a hospital with adolescents. And now I'm dealing with veterans. And I'm learning that there's a lot of different things happen with a guy that just came out of combat who's used to carrying his own weapon and defending his life. And we became very successful because we used peer ambient counselors. A lot of the people that worked with me were veterans that I had already worked with, and I would train them to work with the new people. Well, Oakland County in 1972 became the first county in the United States to have a Department of Drug Abuse Control, a county-level department. And when that happened, Bill Milliken, the governor of Michigan, looked down at Oakland County and said, well, I want to develop a statewide comprehensive exam and a program for the state. How do I get the people who know about building this on my committee? Well, fortunately, Dr. Joe Hill, the president of Oakland Community College, volunteered me to go to Lansing to work with Milliken on the first attempt to build a statewide plan for substance abuse, which was very successful. The Milliken then shared this with the incoming president of the United States, Richard Nixon, who had the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs to do that at Washington level, but he envisioned a different role than it was originally created for that department. And he wanted to expand it beyond law enforcement to work with social services, community-based groups, hospitals, and treatment centers. And when Milliken had the first statewide plan, Nixon said, well, who did you have on your committees and who would be helpful for me? And he put my name forward to Richard Nixon to go to Washington, D.C. to serve as a consultant to the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and then the next year it became the Drug Enforcement Administration. And my job principally was to lecture on the treatment model that I used at Oakland Community College Center for Drug Studies and how that worked. It was a developmental model. And the more I started talking about it, the more people talked to me and say, hey, Jim, you know, we have this agent that had been undercover for 2 or 3 years and he's having problems with his marriage. Could you help him? And I'd say, well, you know, yes, but you have to meet my guidelines. I have to be able to take this client out of the environment for a couple of weeks. And for the Justice Department, that wasn't a problem. And so my success started to spread because of the amount of resources that were made available to me. And when I left the college in 1975 to build my own independent 501c3 nonprofit, I was fortunate enough to have several major auto manufacturers who were already knowledgeable about my work with people. And when I built my clinic, I had both the Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, AMC, the Niederlander Group, state police, and other agencies all serving on my nonprofit board and helping me build my 4 clinics. But the principal access they wanted was for me to work with them and their agency and family members because, as most of us now know, executives in the White House or in auto companies don't use Blue Cross and Blue Shield because they don't want the HR managers to know the diagnostic code that you have to give a patient if you use Blue Cross and Blue Shield. You have to choose a diagnostic code out of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. So if I'm treating you for this diagnostic code, anybody in HR could find out what the problem between you and your wife is. So they never did it. And then, of course, the White House and the Justice Department wouldn't allow it anyway. They were always using cash and no records. And so I learned the value of confidentiality. I learned the value of intensity of approach. And I learned the availability of success when you take people out of their environment and make them focus on their own personal lives for a matter of weeks at a time. It's really easy to hide behind self-defeating behaviors when you're only 50 minutes in front of a therapist. But when you're spending 24 hours with somebody and they see how you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all your other behaviors, the dialogue just keeps increasing and increasing. Next day becomes geometrically in progression. The more they trust you, the more they tell you. The more they tell you, the more they learn to help themselves. And I think the secret of my success is being open to the advancing of knowledge by my clients and how they bring it to me and how they see where they are now and where they want to get to. And then we have to figure out how is it possible. And it's always possible. You just have to be a little bit more creative than the 50-minute hour allows.